Hey everybody, welcome to our live Orange and Brown Talk podcast. I don't know how many people are watching right now because it has been a weird night for us. If you notice, we're not in a stadium like we normally are. I'm actually going to check something just real quick, make sure our audio is working. It is. Okay. So obviously we're not in a studio like we normally are. We are at the A-Loft in the financial district, and I just doxed us in New York. You can see we have dogs over our heads. If you're listening on the pod afterwards, you'll notice, go to our YouTube, you'll see there's dogs over our heads. We're in this lounge. Our computer, our laptop is set up on a pool table. So yeah, no Lance Risland today. It's just going to be the three of us, and we're going to talk about this loss today that the Browns suffered to the Jets, 27-20. There's so many different directions to go here, Mary Kay. I guess let's start here. And if there are people watching live on YouTube, this will certainly get the comments going, as it always does. You just put up a column as we were leaving the press box. We got kicked out of the press box. That's why we're in this kind of random bar place at the A-Loft. If you just put up a column as we were walking out of the press box at MetLife Stadium that Kevin Stefanski is right to stick with Dillon Gabriel, which is what he told us he was going to do after the game. So I guess let's just start there. Why do you think Kevin is doing the right thing, sticking with Dillon Gabriel after another loss here?
Well, I actually feel this way for a lot of reasons, but the main reason I feel like this right now is because they just turned the play calling over to Tommy Rees. And I saw some flashes of efficiency. I saw some creative formations. I saw a more up-tempo scheme. I saw some things that I really liked. And I think that Tommy and Dillon deserve a chance to work together a little bit more. I thought that Dillon, when they moved him out of the pocket and did some different things with him, using that quarterback movement, I mean, he actually ran for 54 yards. I thought the things that he did with Tommy at the helm looked pretty good, looked promising enough to warrant a longer look. So I would say, and we can just chew on that for a minute, that's probably my number one reason right now.
Yeah, so Ashley, when we look at this, obviously the option would be to go to Shedeur Sanders, and there's 8 games left in this football season. We don't know how far along Shedeur Sanders is. We don't know, obviously other reports, and Mary Kay, you've done a lot of reporting on this. Obviously the reports are that he has made progress, right? He's gotten better, but we don't know what that means in the context of, is he ready to go start a football game? Is he ready to go start 8 football games? Is he ready to start against the Baltimore Ravens in a division? There's so many unknowns still, I think, with Shedeur Sanders and what he's ready for. I think we are getting to that point where it's like, how much more Dillon Gabriel do we need to see? But 8 games is a lot of football to just throw a guy in. And Dillon hasn't even gotten 8 games, right? At some point you've got to if you're going to say Shedeur needs 8 games, well, Dillon Gabriel needs some more time too. I don't know what Dillon Gabriel is going to be. I'm obviously not as bullish on Dillon Gabriel as the Cleveland Browns are, but the reality is I think they're still doing the right thing here.
Yeah, it's tough, and I wrote this after the game. Like, I don't fault fans for wanting to see Shedeur right now. And that's mainly all non-football reasons, right? Like, it's more about, I think Shedeur clearly provides the star power, provides some excitement. And this is a fan base that hasn't had a lot to look forward to. And when I say it's not all football reasons, I don't mean, I think Shedeur is going to come in and it's going to look worse. What I mean is we just don't know these things because we aren't watching practice. So I can't sit here and tell people, none of us can, how Shedeur looks and how he's developed. We just don't know because once training camp is done, that's it. We don't get to watch these guys in practice every day anymore. So I understand this idea of fans being excited, fans wanting to see Shedeur, it being one of the very small handful of things that Browns fans have to anticipate or look forward to in a disappointing 2-7 season right now. But at the same time, 5 games for Dillon Gabriel is not a lot. And the way Dillon Gabriel was talking today, reading that transcript, I think, you can kind of hear the argument for why they maybe would stick with him. And I think 5 games for Dillon Gabriel is also different than 4 games for Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is obviously a seasoned veteran. They knew what they were getting, and it wasn't working. Do I think the offense looks super efficient with Dillon? No. But also, if they want to see more from him, a larger sample size for a rookie is just different than a veteran.
Yeah, and I always go back and forth when we do these live shows. And again, I don't know if we're live or not, but when we do these live shows and the chats start going with the Shedeur stuff, I kind of always go like, I guess saying that it's okay to still stick with Dillon Gabriel, at least for me, isn't necessarily me saying, "Hey, Dillon's been awesome," and I don't want to see Shedeur. It's not like a vote against Shedeur Sanders, but for whatever it's worth, Mary Kay, there's an order of operation here, right? And they threw Dillon Gabriel in, I think, earlier than expected. I think that matters. And he is the starter right now. And we know Kevin Stefanski normally has a very long leash with these guys. And I do think the worst thing you can do for a young quarterback, and this goes for Shedeur as well as Dillon, is like, hey, we're going to put you in and we're going to take you out and we're going to put you in. And, then we're going to go to Shedeur, then we're going to go back to Dillon and then back to Shedeur. Like that's not helping a quarterback's development either. And I mean, let's be honest, this season it's 2-7 right now. You just lost to the Jets. It's done. Like the whole point of the rest of this season is to find out about these two quarterbacks. And the best way to do that is probably let Dillon have a few more games and then let Shedeur have his shot.
Absolutely 100%. I really do feel that way because Dillon is just starting to figure out what this whole thing is all about. And he doesn't necessarily get the help that he needs. There were still dropped passes today. There were false starts. There were penalties. There were mistakes. There were missed blocking assignments. A lot of things around him still aren't going that well. I counted, I would say, 3 or 4 drops in this game. Now, it depends on how you want to look at it. Is a drop, is it a drop or is it a breakup? There were some breakups that could go, sort of drop / breakup type thing. But the receivers have to make those catches. They have to win those contested balls. They have to hang on to those and not let them get knocked out of their hands. So I'm a hard grader when it comes to dropped passes, and I consider some of those things to be dropped. So I saw 3 or 4 of those today at very untimely moments. I also saw some completely off throws again by Dillon. There were throws where it was like, what were you doing there? Where were you going with that? So it's a little bit of everything, but I think they need more time on task. Jerry Jeudy finally kind of got involved and started to heat up a little bit and get some touches early, and those two are just starting to find their rhythm together a little bit. I think that Ced Tillman just got back into the lineup today. I think those two need a little time. They haven't had any time together yet. So those two need some time to get their mojo down together. He struggled a little bit with Harold Fannin today. And now Harold Fannin had a hamstring injury. I don't know how he was feeling today, but he got out to a very slow start in this game, I thought. Once again, he's got to be maybe a little tougher and win those contested balls. He's a big guy, right? From a height standpoint and from a build standpoint, and he's got to win more of those 50-50 balls. So I do think that Dillon deserves more of a shot, more of an opportunity. And what are you going to do if Shedeur goes in there and it becomes apparent that he's not ready? Like, what are you going to do? And you still have 7 games left or 6 games left, right? It's too soon if you don't know for sure that he's ready. And the thing that I keep coming back to with him, and like I said, you guys have seen me write this and heard me say it. He is making tremendous progress. But if he's not mobile, teams can tee off on him and take advantage of that. And I don't know if he's going to be able to get himself out of trouble. Some may say, well, can it get worse? It can get worse if he can't protect himself. And so these are some things to consider.
Yeah, and again, this isn't like I'm not sitting here pounding the table being like, man, Dillon Gabriel's been awesome. Dillon Gabriel's shown me everything I need to see. He's a franchise quarterback. I think sometimes people like conflate those two. Like if you're saying, well, it's don't go to Shedeur next week, you're saying, well, Dillon's the guy. Dillon's going to be the quarterback for 10 years. That's not what I'm saying. Like these two things can exist in one space. You do need to see Shedeur Sanders, but it's okay to give Dillon Gabriel a little more time. And I know that, again, people get impatient. They're angry. I understand it. This team has been maddening all season long. This offense in particular has been maddening all season long. People were mad about the Dillon Gabriel pick the minute they made it. So I understand the emotions behind it. But for all the things that and we're going to get to Kevin and the special teams and all that stuff, for all the things we can criticize about them, I do think their approach to these young quarterbacks has been sound.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is them sticking with the approach they had and not buckling because of, outside pressure or like little mistakes that Dillon is making. And look, I think about it a lot in basketball terms, right? Like if you take a guy out and he makes one mistake, I think a lot of times that ends up being detrimental because then you're playing afraid, right? Like had they benched Dillon when he threw his first interceptions, like that would have been incredibly detrimental. It's kind of like the same thing, even though the flow of the game is very different from football to basketball. But I do think the sticking to the plan and sticking to your guns is important, like not just in this smaller picture of working with Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, but also in seeing like, can this team develop young quarterbacks? This is the first time we are seeing them really try to do it, right? And like Dorian Thompson-Robinson is really the only other example, and that obviously didn't work. But this is the first time they're bringing guys in with the hopes that one or both could be starters potentially for you. And I think sticking to that plan is also going to provide some insight into being like, okay, did they actually find something? Did they develop anybody when it's all said and done?
Okay, let's shift gears. Let's talk a little bit about Kevin. Let's talk about obviously the special teams was a mess today. Bubba Ventrone has not had a great year as special teams coordinator, and for me, Mary Kay, like I have been. It's sort of been about patience, right? It's sort of been about understanding what this was like. How many games was this team actually going to win? What kind of weapons does Kevin have? All of that stuff. This is kind of the first game where I'm really kind of allowing myself to wonder, like, is this going to work? Like, is there more? Is this worth running back another year? Is this worth keeping this going for another year? Obviously, we know Paul DePodesta just left the organization, and that is a guy that, while it might not be a sign that there's going to be some huge changes this offseason, that is a guy who would have been an advocate, I think, for kind of sticking to things. This is the first day losing to this football team and the way they lost that I've really, truly started to waver on this idea of where is this going at the end of this season? And more immediately, what does this team do at special teams? Because again, today you had a kickoff return touchdown and a punt return touchdown in a span of 36 seconds. And it's just been an ongoing thing with the special teams where, yes, there's been some good, like the fire drill right at the end, but there's been too much bad on the special team side. I know fans have been off the bandwagon for a long time, but this is a day that I think it's completely and totally fair to start to waver on, like, what is the actual long-term outlook for this thing?
Yeah, that was so disappointing about the special teams, the returns for touchdowns today, because offensively and defensively, they pretty much did what they needed to do to win the football game. I mean, they held the Jets to, I think, 166 yards. They held Justin Fields to 6 completions on 11 attempts for 54 yards. For the most part, they shut down Justin Fields. Now, Breece Hall made a couple of plays, but until he caught that screen pass for 42 yards, the catch and run for the TD, Justin Fields had 11 yards until that point. 11 yards, and that was in the fourth quarter. So the defense did what it needed to do. And this was the special teams just completely springing a leak. And that's really unfortunate for them. Unless they don't really care about winning the football game. I mean, you could call this the Fernando Mendoza Bowl, right? I mean, they moved up to number 5 in draft order, and the Jets moved behind them to number 6. So maybe it'll actually work out for the best that they lost this football game. But I don't think that was their intent. I really still think that they were here to try to win the game and try to see if they can remain relevant in the AFC North and whatnot, which now is just like gone to heck in a handbag. But the special teams were just an enormous disappointment today, except for the fire drill. And I don't know. I don't know where you go from here with that unit.
Yeah, and like I don't even want to give them that out of like, well, look at what happened with the draft. Like I don't want to give them that because that hasn't been the messaging, right? That hasn't been what we've, at the trade deadline, they didn't make a bunch of moves to add pick. They didn't do what the Jets did. And I think that's what sticks with me with this loss. And I think that's what's going to stick with me. This feels like the Las Vegas game last year, or whatever game you want to pick from last season. It was like, oh, there's no way the Browns can lose this game. I mean, seeing it in person, that is an awful Jets team. I mean, Justin Fields threw the ball 11 times today. Like, he's just not a viable quarterback. And to lose this football game to that team when I don't think they're tanking, the Jets just had a fire sale and are fully thinking. I mean, their head coach was saying, like, something along the lines of, we're going to make you proud, but not right now. Like, this might not be the team that you're proud of. Well, I think there weren't a lot of people at this football game, but the 30,000 Jets fans who showed up in New Jersey today were pretty proud of that team for getting a win. And Ashley, you can't lose games like this if you want to convince me that this is the group going forward. Like, these are the games you're supposed to win. At least be the team that's better than the Jets and better than the Titans and better than the Raiders.
No, and I mean, think about the fact when Bubba Ventrone was hired, like, it was supposed to be to overhaul this special teams unit. And look, I think in a lot of ways, things were not set up well here for him to do those things. Like, I mean, I would argue now the bottom of the roster has been an issue in recent games for them. And obviously you need those guys to be good to contribute on special teams. They've never figured out returner in my time on the beat. That is a problem that goes back years. The kicking issues they've had, all these things, right? But I mean, think about this today. The defense was on the field for 3 plays. They force a 3 and out. The Browns score. Great. They're up 7-0. The next time the defense takes the field, they're now down 14-7. So through no fault of them, they were playing from behind yet again. And that's something we've seen this team struggle with all year. It does kind of hamstring the defense a little bit, but this also isn't the first time. And I wrote about this, that the special teams have, I would argue, cost them a game. It goes back to Week 1, Andre Schmidt misses a couple of kicks against the Bengals. Week 2, they have that blocked punt. Corey Bojorquez almost gets hurt. They're lucky that wasn't worse. They gave up a return touchdown to the Lions, right? Like, there have been multiple things throughout just this season where special teams have cost them games. And special teams is one of those things where people aren't talking about it typically unless it's like a game-winning kick or something, right? Or a kick or a punt gets blocked in return for a touchdown. But the fact that everyone is talking about this Browns special teams as much as they are, like, goes to show you how bad it is, I think, right now.
Yeah, and just, with the special teams and all that, I mean, look, we got to talk about the Cam Thomas offsides. Like, on the one hand, that's just like a player who's like, you've got to be better, right? It's 4th down and 5. They're not going to snap the football. Everybody in that stadium knew that. I actually joked, the person sitting next to me, our buddy Chris, we kind of were joking. He said, they're just going to run into the punter when they punt the ball, right? And I said, or they're just going to jump off sides here. And guess what happens? They jump off sides. I was shocked that they did it. And I think Kevin was shocked. And I think the Jets sideline was shocked. Everyone was shocked that they actually jumped in that situation. But Mary Kay, all those things, like, right there, player mistakes sometimes. Devin Bush gets called for the illegal contact. I don't remember. It was an interference or an illegal contact or something, or a hold that gave the Jets a first down on that same series. All those little things, all those little mistakes. Yes, it's players making those mistakes, but those things add up and pile up because either one, maybe the players just aren't good enough and they're in positions where they shouldn't be, or 2, the coaching just isn't, they're not getting the message through to these guys. Like, for some reason, the message didn't get through to Cam Thomas. Do not jump here. Like, whatever you do not jump. So it was a terrible play by him, but like, why does that happen? And I think a lot of these issues, these repeated mistakes, just every game we're sitting here talking about something else. It goes deeper than just the players, right? There's something going on with the coaching too.
I just can't imagine how Cam Thomas would not have been reminded, coached up, or just instinctively know what you cannot do in that situation. I don't really understand that. And we didn't get a chance to talk to him. I don't know if he was in the locker room or whatever after the game, but we didn't not get a chance to talk to him about that situation. I mean, Kevin Stefanski was very upset on the sidelines. He mouthed, "Oh my God." So those are inexcusable mental errors that you cannot make. And it does, you just have to wonder, because they came back from the bye with a renewed vigor, a renewed sense of, let's get this thing turned around. And that they're all preaching and coaching from that same hymnal about all of that. And it's not working.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Again, I don't want to not, like, again, Cam Thomas deserves the blame for it. And somebody, I had tweeted out when it happened, like, I can't believe he jumped. That's got to be on the coaching to some degree. And somebody replied, well, the coach didn't jump offsides. And you're right, the coach didn't jump offsides. That's a player issue. But when we sit here and talk about these mistakes over and over again, whether it's kick returns, all those special teams mistakes you ran through, Ashley, just week after week, whatever it is, a penalty, penalties, pre-snap penalties, jumping off sides on a 4th and 5 when you could have at least gotten the ball back. I don't know if they're driving 90 yards to win the game, but you're at least giving yourself a chance. Like, those things add up. And at some point, like, there's something not getting through. There's some message that's not getting through. And that's when you start to wonder where this is going when we get to whatever day, January 9th or whatever day the last day of the season is.
Yeah, it is, because at a certain point, it's like, well, what do you do? Like, do you just run it back again for, after a second straight, potentially, I mean, we're talking very, very few wins season again, and not change anything just because, in this case, like, you have a head coach that did win Coach of the Year a couple of times. Like, I don't know. Like, that's a tough thing to have to answer. And obviously we're not the people that make the calls on this, but it does, I think, get really, really tricky, because it's like, are you making the change for the sake of making a change, or is it because it's the right thing to do at that time?
Yeah, since that playoff win against the Jets, 5-23 when you count that playoff game. So they lost the 2 games that year, 3-14 last year, 2-7 this year. So it hasn't been great. Okay, we had to keep it a little short because of circumstances. Like I said, we're sitting in the A-loft here at this bar that might still be under construction. I don't know. We got dog photos up above us. I don't know if it's going to start to get noisy in here in a second. So we're going to wrap things up there on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. If you want to see those dog photos, go find our YouTube channel, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. We try to go live on Sundays. Don't know if we pulled it off this week or not, but whatever. We'll keep trying to go live when we can. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, search Orange and Brown Talk, wherever you listen to your podcast. Become a Football Insider subscriber, cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. And our socials, Orange and Brown Talk on Instagram, Orange Brown Talk on Twitter. Like I said, we're sitting here because we got kicked out of the press box. We're going to have to tell, we got some road stories for this year. We got kicked out of the press box much earlier than we're used to. So for Mary Kay and Ashley, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.